Hey there, it's Dusty Thunder with another AITA story for you. This one is, am I the ascon for telling my parents if they want to charge me rent, then they need to treat me like an adult? I, female 18, just had my 18th birthday yesterday. It was nothing big, I just went on a shopping spree with my own money. When I came home, my mother and stepfather decided to sit me down and gave a whole lecture on how I'm an adult and I need to start paying rent because they weren't going to house adults for free. Even though my stepdad's 23-year-old son lives with us here for free, but that's besides the point. They told me I would start paying $650 every first of the month starting July 1st. I tried to bring up how my stepbrother doesn't pay anything and it was unfair to spring this on me when I just turned 18. They responded that I must have the money since I went shopping today. Now let me tell you, I pay for everything I have. My phone, my car, which is in my name, my clothes, and even food I eat because they claim I eat too much even though I don't. So I agreed to pay rent. But since I was paying for everything I owned, they could no longer treat me like a kid. Instead of them looking at me like I'm their kid/stepkid, I would be looked at as a tenant. They could no longer give me a curfew. I would be disabling Life 360, and they could no longer just barge into my room because I pay for it. They could no longer demand anything from me besides rent on the first of every month. I also told them that if they couldn't follow my rules, since I'm paying the rent, then I will just go somewhere else. This started an argument, and they started yelling about how I'm disrespectful and that this was their house and they didn't have to follow any rules of mine, so I just left. Now I've been getting calls from my family calling me ungrateful, and my mother could have just kicked me out. So Reddit, am I the asshole? $650 for her room, use of the bathroom, use of common areas, which would be what, like kitchen, living room, that kind of stuff. $650. It would be interesting to know where OP lives because obviously, you know, if it's a more urban area, it's going to cost more to go out on her own. But I could tell you here, like, you could rent a not too bad place for $650, especially if it's just you there. So you could probably find it with utilities included as well. At $650, if you got a roommate, you can have a decent place. A good place. The question is, am I the ascon for telling my parents if they want to charge me rent, then they need to treat me like an adult? Hell no. Definitely not the asshole for saying that. You reverse Uno then, which is fantastic. Essentially what you said was, okay, let's reciprocate. If that's what you want to do, the reverse must also be true, right? If you want to treat me like an adult and charge me rent, then these are the expectations laid forth. Otherwise, if I'm going to be paying rent, I might as well go somewhere else. I'm already paying for everything else on my own, sans utilities, right? But I assumed that part of what they were going to be charging her was baked in utilities, but she's providing her own food, she's providing her own toiletries, providing her own clothing, her own car, her own phone, her own everything, sans a box to sleep in and utilities for it. And they want to charge her $650, but not the 23-year-old son. What? And then when she says that, she gets called disrespectful and ungrateful. So here's my theory. Because stepdad's son, her stepbrother, isn't treated like this. I think this was a play by stepdad where he's got OP's mom brainwashed into thinking that this is the way and it's okay for his son to receive different treatment than her child. She's bought it either because she's stuck and has to go along with whatever he says, or she actually believes it and drank the Kool-Aid and is now like, I will allow my child to be treated differently in a poor manner because I think that's the right thing to do because I've allowed myself to be gaslit and drink the Kool-Aid and now that's just the way it is. Whatever he says goes. This is my theory. The only thing in my head that can explain his son not being treated like that is her just being a pushover and laying down and allowing her 18-year-old child to be mistreated. It was a play that started with stepdad. This is my theory. Not saying this is the way it is, but it's the only thing that makes sense in my head. And if that's the case, I think both mom and dad here are ascon ones. It's a terrible thing to do to treat the child differently. I'm not saying that at 18, you don't need to start pushing independence, but there's a way to do that in a nurturing way that is not like, hey, you took yourself shopping for your birthday, start paying rent now. I don't think that's the play. And then to be like, we're not going to charge him rent. He's 5 years older. It's time for you to start acting like an adult. It's different for him. That part's not going to hit till he's 30, obviously, because he can't or whatever. He shouldn't. He says so. I think mom is an ascon one here for allowing it to happen, for allowing her child to be treated differently. That's where I'm at on it. We'll go ahead and bring up the ascon one for both the folks here. Shit, people. If you're going to do it, you have to do it unilaterally. You have to be consistent across all the children and treat them the same way. And even if you made the decision to start right now with both of them, it's still not equal treatment because he's 23. He's had 5 years to get his shit together post-graduating high school. And Your daughter is just now there and you're like, boom. Oh, you went shopping? Okay, $650 a month. Garbage. And I think here, OP, the smart play on your end is to just stay out. I mean, if they're going to push independence on you, if you're going to pay $650 a month and you're already providing everything else for yourself, enjoy the benefits that come along with it, like freedom and independence. And I think you're going to be much, much happier. Said she left and now she's getting calls from family calling her ungrateful that her mother could have just kicked her out. Well, she essentially did, right? And really, if they were trying to kick her out without kicking her out, wouldn't this be the play? If stepdad here was like, I need to find a way to get her out of the house. I really want to turn that bedroom into my workout room or study, or movie room, whatever. He'd be like, okay, I have an idea. We'll say we're going to start paying her rent right now. If she doesn't like it, she can get out. And make it a stupid amount, like $650 for one bedroom. Could have been. Either way, I think it started with him because of the inequality and how those two kids are treated differently. I call them kids, young adults. You know what I mean. I could be wrong, but it all makes sense in my head. Can't just be like, okay, one kid is self-sufficient and makes money. One kid is just a leech. So obviously we can't charge the leech because you can't get anything out of that kid. This kid, we can. So there are so many different paths available. And I'm not trying to prevent anybody from considering going to college, but there are so many paths available that do not require it. I think you have to really decide on a direction before you commit to that level of debt because there's so many paths that don't force you to go there. Now, I will say that there is a huge benefit, even if you don't know what the F you want to do in life, to going to college. And Candy Thunder, I think, said it really well. You go to college to learn, if that makes sense. A lot of people have a specialty and they know what they want to do when they grow up. They're getting the training and credentials for it, and that's great. That's ideal. If not, the benefit is that you are learning to learn. You're learning to problem solve. You're learning to prepare reports. You're learning to give presentations in front of people. You're learning to do a lot of the adulting things that being successful in business and life require, but you're learning it in a very structured setting. And there are huge benefits to that. It sucks that there's so much debt and cost attached to it, but there is still a benefit to it. I just think that if you're a kid who's having to pay their own way, you need to really think long and hard about the path that you want to take before you sign up for that level of debt.